morning. I'm Carlton Sharp, pastor of Faith Christian Center Church right here in Beaumont, Texas. And we're here on what's happening in our neighborhood. And today my special guest is Judge Raquel West. Welcome, Judge.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, listen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm judge of the 252nd District Court. I'm a local girl. I'm raised here out in Nome, and I've been now on the bench for going on my 5th year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, this is your first year of your second term.
That's right. It is. And I'm loving it.
Hey, listen, how do you go from an English major with a minor in French to becoming a lawyer?
Well, the good thing about that is to get into law school, all you need are good grades. And I was an English nerd. I liked reading a lot, and so that's how I got into law school, was by getting good grades in English. And there's a lot of reading and interpreting and things like that in the law, so it actually worked out perfect.
And then an Aggie after that.
We're not going to make fun of Aggies today.
No,
now.
we're not going to make fun of Aggies. No, we're not. No, we're not. So now, but we talked, the last time we talked, you talked about the load of the docket on the court right now. How is that going? How has it been moving?
It's been actually moving incredible. I don't remember what the numbers were exactly when we met last time, but when I first took the bench, my trial docket alone, which is just the cases that are waiting on a trial, had over 300 cases waiting for trial.
Wow.
Now we're kind of averaging between about 70 and 80. And we're getting them moved in an appropriate amount of time, and it took that first term to get it done, but we got it done, and now we're just kind of going along. There's a lot of crime, and there's a lot of cases.
So what do you attribute the movement of the cases?
Just, it takes everyone being pushed to work, for one thing. And so when I'm there and say, I'm ready, let's get a case tried, and the district attorney and the defense attorney, whoever's number one, if they're not ready, then we just keep on moving. And
Wow.
so it just takes a little pushing to everybody.
Now, I noticed on your website that that on Mondays you start to actually put your cases together. Who's going to be coming to court that week, right?
Correct. Right. So we'll start Monday morning at 8:30 with the trial docket, and we may have anywhere between 5 and up to maybe 10 cases that are set for trial every week. Mm-hmm. And the reason we do so many is because sometimes it's a big puzzle piece to get a trial ready, with witnesses and everyone being able to be available. So if one's not ready for some reason, we've got another one right behind it and ready to go.
Now, and then it moves because some people may plea out because they see the jury sitting outside.
That happens all the time. So your number one case all of a sudden takes a deal. The number 2 case, their deal might look a little better, and so on and so on. And so, yeah, just knowing that they're up and ready for trial sometimes moves the cases.
Now, there is an alarming statistic that's going on right now that the offenders are getting younger and younger and younger and younger. Talk to us about that.
I don't have the actual statistics, but I can tell you that even just for the 5 years or so that I've been there, just visually seeing the people standing in front of me, I feel like I'm looking at babies all the time. They are younger, and the younger ones are committing more serious offenses. A lot of times it seems like in the past, you've got your young kids, they start with a little misdemeanor and sometimes work their way up by the time they end up in felony court. Now we're getting juveniles who are committing serious offenses, aggravated robberies, murders, things like that. They're becoming certified to stand trial as an adult, and they're ending up in my court at 16, 17, 18. Wow. I had a 14-year-old.
Wow.
It's an alarming and terrible.
So how do you certify them from juvenile to the adult court?
So what happens on that is actually a process that takes place in family court. So our 2 family court judges are the ones, when they're a juvenile, the family court judges handle juvenile cases. So if a juvenile appears in their court and meets certain criteria, obviously the type of offense and how serious it is, if they have criminal history, things like that, their maturity, there's an evaluation that is done of that child, and if all the things meet those criteria, then that judge in family court certifies them to stand trial, and then it gets sent to my court.
So your court doesn't actually certify them.
No.
You receive them once they're certified by a family court judge.
Correct. Once I get them, they're assumed to be, I treat them as any other adult.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell them, one of the things I say to them all the time is that sometimes they'll show up in court and they'll want their mama or their grandma or their dad or somebody to come up with them. And I have to tell them, this is big boy and big girl court.
Wow.
You have to take responsibility now and mature in a way that most kids your age don't have to.
So do they understand the severity of what they're in when you see them? I mean,
I think probably not. I think it takes a little while for it to sink in, unfortunately. Now, for some of them, I think it does. Some of them, I think when they come into that court and they see that it's all adults and they're not being treated like a child, I talk to them the same way that they're being talked to.
Yeah.
They saw the person before being talked to.
Yeah.
That's how they get talked to.
Right.
And I go through that, and I do think some of them do. I think some of them don't. I think it's hard. You're not really mature at that age. Your brain doesn't develop fully. They say, especially, I think it's 25 years old in a male and maybe 23 in a female.
Yeah.
So I'm dealing with people who are 16 and 17. They're not fully mature, but yet they're being required to handle things in a mature way.
Because they've done an adult crime.
They made a very mature decision.
Yeah.
And so now they have to figure out how to deal with the consequences of that.
So what is the impact on their families that you see? On their families? We'll get to the victim's family.
It's both sides of every offense has two different sets of people who are affected. And the family of the offender obviously is terribly affected. Sometimes their young child is going to prison. And so they have to deal with probably guilt. They have to deal with what to do and how to handle it and how to try to help them through the system. There's a lot of guilt from families, especially in really serious offenses, towards the victim's family.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot that they have to deal with. They're losing someone just like potentially a victim's family has in some way. They may be losing them to prison. They may not be losing them to obviously a homicide or a murder, but they're still losing that family member potentially.
And then what about the victim's family? I mean, because it has to be impactful for you to see a person who maybe have lost a family member due to a youth crime.
Very, very difficult. So difficult because they're so senseless. So many things that we're seeing are just senseless. And they don't have a lot of motive. People want to ask the question, why?
Yeah.
And there's not good answers.
Yeah.
There's really not. It's just this kind of almost Wild West that we've gone back to of no. My personal feeling is that technology and social media and things like that really does play a part in it, because there's a disconnect between reality and what they're kind of used to. Well, we put it on Snapchat, it's not real because it's out there.
That's good.
And so when they do something like take someone's life or go commit an aggravated robbery with a gun, all of a sudden it's real, and I don't think they've had those real consequences yet in their lives.
Yeah, it's no more play anymore.
And that's a
Wow.
harsh reality very quick for a lot of young people who have not had consequences.
Now, do you get a chance to talk to them to see what they were thinking?
It depends on the nature of how the case is going. So a lot of times what happens in these cases with young offenders is they come to me and enter a plea, either unagreed or maybe to a cap of a certain amount, and then I have to determine what the sentencing is.
Right.
If I'm going to determine what the sentencing is, then I'm going to get as much information as everyone as I can.
Right.
Their attorney gives me information. I always want to hear from that person, whether they're an adult or a juvenile.
Okay.
And I listen to them, I talk to them, explain to them, again, this is big boy or big girl court, and this is how this is going to work, and tell me and listen to what they have to say. And sometimes it goes into my decision, and sometimes it doesn't. It just depends.
Well, now, in the juvenile aspect, are you seeing more young men or young women?
Young men.
Young men?
Yes. Definitely young men. I have not seen as many young females. I have females in my court all the time, but not the young ones like I'm seeing of the boys.
So are they being influenced by older men and women to be?
Oh, absolutely. I think boys are boys, and they want to be cool, and they want to fit in, and they want to fit in with the older ones. And if they're in certain neighborhoods, certain areas where there are crime, bad things going on, then they unfortunately tend to gravitate to, well, I'm going to try to be cool like him, so I'll go do this, or I'll do it for them to prove myself and things like that.
And then maybe also is the older person may convince them that, hey, you won't do serious time.
Oh, absolutely. And that used to be something that was true, and a lot of times they didn't do it, the serious time. Now they are certifying more and more as adults because of the seriousness of the offenses, and they're doing that time, even though there's some cases pending right now. Again, I mentioned before, I had a juvenile that was 14 years old accused of murder, and capital murder. And he has entered a plea, and we're waiting a trial of a co-defendant to see what happens with him. The co-defendant's an older person who I'm sure influenced the younger ones in that group to do some of what happened.
So then how do you determine the range of the length of time that they're going to serve?
So much goes into that. There's no perfect formula for that. I'm sometimes given a range or a cap. If there's an agreement, sometimes they'll come to me with a cap, and maybe the most I can give is a certain number. And so what I'll do is just I look at criminal history, I look at family history, I look at drug use history. I listen to and read. I get letters of support for people all the time. Sometimes people have gone out on their own and tried to take some classes. Even if they're waiting in jail, there are classes offered. Some people will walk up to me with a stack of every class they possibly could have taken while they were in jail. I take that into consideration. They're not just sitting around and playing cards and shooting the breeze with their buddies in jail. They're going and doing what they can. All that goes into play. And then I have to think about our community and keeping our community safe, regardless really of how old or young the offender is. What's going to keep us safe? People are not feeling safe right now in our county.
So if they bring you a range of a sentence, can you overrule that range based on the severity of a situation?
Yes. What I can do with any plea agreement that is brought before me, I can reject that plea agreement. And if I reject it, then they have two options. They can go back and renegotiate and come back with something that maybe I'll accept, or it can go on the trial docket and a jury can decide that instead of me.
Yeah.
So, and I don't reject a lot, but I do some when I feel like something is a little more worthy of either more time or things like that based on what I see.
Now the fact that you see crime every day, how does that impact you as an individual?
Well, you could probably ask my kids how it affects me, and they think it probably adversely affects me more than some, because I am very aware of my surroundings. I'm very aware of what's going on in our community. A lot of it makes the news, but a lot of it doesn't make the news. You have to be able to, and I had to do it as a lawyer, and I really have to do it even more as a judge, kind of compartmentalize a little bit in your brain. It's back there. But I also have to not be a fanatic when I'm home, and I have to let my children grow up and go and do, but they know what's out there and how to be careful too. So it's hard. There are days I go home and have some hard, tough decisions to make, and it affects me, but I do my best to leave it at work.
And so they're like, Mom, be mom, don't be judge right now.
Yes. Yeah, it's hard to separate the two. It's very hard to separate the two. Yeah.
I'm trying to help you.
I know, yeah. Don't listen. For my kids, they don't get to listen.
Now I also noticed that on your website, you're implementing online information, like the bonds conditions.
Right.
So people can know what if you're going to get bond, this is what the conditions are.
Absolutely. We try to give as much, everything is technology driven now.
Yes.
The more we have on the website, the less phone calls my secretaries get. Our dockets are all online. You can look online every week and see what cases are coming and what they're set for. You can see, for instance, bond conditions, our rules of the court, things that kind of the lawyers have to know and live by. There's a lot of information you can get off the website.
Yeah, and now mentioning attorneys, they know now that we're going to move this case.
They do know now that. They do. They have learned sometimes the hard way, but they also know I'm very easygoing. up to a point. And so I understand that things happen with cases where they're not going to be ready for trial. And if it is a really valid, you've got a witness that's in the hospital, I'm not going to make them go to trial without a witness. But we do our best to work things out where they know that I like being in trial. I like being in the courtroom, and so it doesn't bother me to go to trial. Like maybe some judges would rather, y'all take care, I'll leave you a reset because I don't feel like it anyway. If I'm not in trial, I tend to get in trouble. I online shop too much, and I get on my staff's nerves, so they need me in trial and out of their hair.
That's pretty good.
It's true. It's true. I get bored and I shop, and so I need to be in court. It saves me money.
Now, I sat in on your court one time. I don't know if you've seen me in there, but I sat in your court one time and just watched how you actually operate. And this was a Monday, and so you were getting all the docket together.
Lots goes on a Monday.
And I mean, it was like boom, 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 boom.
It is. I encourage people all the time. They will ask what I do. If somebody wants to see, come on a Monday morning.
Yeah.
Because we will, in a matter of about 3.5 to 4 hours, sometimes handle about 50 cases.
Yeah.
And doing different things, accepting pleas, sentencings, resetting cases because of different things, setting the trial docket to see what's going to start that afternoon for trial. Yeah. And I'm, like I said, I'm very easygoing, but you will see a very different side of me sometimes in court also. I have to be very serious. I can be very stern. You push me too far, there's a different, you have to do what you have to do.
And coming from the law, being an attorney to being judge, I mean, you understand what the attorneys are going through.
I do. And a lot of the attorneys, I was there where I was set to be in 3 courts at one time on a Monday morning. I had cases set in multiple courts. So I do know where they're coming from. I also know the games that you play to get out of things. And so a lot of times I'll get things, I think, I know that game,
I've seen that one before.
I've used that one before. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I do know and am very, I think, accommodating when I can be with the lawyers, with the other judges. We're all sharing. Monday mornings, a lot of us have our phones on the bench as judges. We're texting each other, hey, do you have this lawyer? Do you have this one? Can I have him? Can you have them? Right. Let's swap and things like that.
And then also helping out other judges in their courts, like you said earlier.
Right. We have, our drug court has had Judge Gist in it for years and years, and he's having some health problems. And a lot of the judges, including myself, have stepped up, and we were going over and taking care of those cases. That is a very busy court. Wow. It cannot go without a judge for very long, and so we're handling those cases. And
so so you see your docket, and then you determine when you can go over to the drug impact court?
We're working out a schedule, between myself and some of the other judges. Our misdemeanor judges can actually handle those felony cases in our court. Judge Woods is helping out. We've got actually Judge Floyd and Judge Buddy Hahn from Orange, who are both retired.
Okay.
Didn't really want to retire. They kind of aged out, and so we're letting them help out, which helps them and helps us as well. So we're making it work and making a schedule.
So I didn't know that you could age out of being a judge.
As a district judge, you can.
Okay.
A county court of law judge, you do not. But for the district judges, 74 maybe, something like that. Yeah.
Well, and this saves the county resources because you don't have to bring a judge from out of town.
Correct. It absolutely does. And so for those of us locally, Judge Templeton has helped, Judge Walston has helped, Judge Sanderson has offered to help, and so anyone who's already a judge that's helping, we're not paying any money.
Right.
So it helps. Obviously, we have those backups with the retired judges. They will get paid for their time, but it's still saving the county money.
Exactly.
And we all have time here and there to help. So it's covering that court's not going to be a problem.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, Judge, I'm so glad you came on today.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Appreciate you having me.
Hey, is there any last words you want to tell the community?
Just stay safe and come see me if you ever want to come visit. Really, it's an interesting process.
It really is. On Monday mornings.
It's very interesting. And show up for jury duty.
Oh, that's good.
Show up for jury duty. Look, I'm looking at this way. Show up.
Wait, let me put it over there. Tell them again, Judge.
Show up for jury duty. There's a problem with people not showing up for jury duty, and it really does affect everyone involved, the victim's family, the defendant, people who are waiting in jail. And there are weeks when we're having trouble getting juries, and if we don't have a jury, we can't work.
And now the jury system is automated. Jamie
He's
Smith
done a
has
wonderful job
in automating it, where you could actually say when you can come.
Absolutely. What you can do is when you go on, if you can't do it certain weeks, you put those weeks that you can't. It's going to give you a week that you can get on.
Yeah.
And so take advantage of it. We need our jurors.
And even if it means that, hey, listen, you're sitting out in the foyer area of the court, and then all of a sudden they decide to plead because they see you out there.
Well, and I walk out and I try to tell my juries who have been sitting out there, I actually go out into the hall when all of the cases go away and we don't need them. I walk out and I do my best every time to say, do not think that your time was not valuable.
Yeah.
Because if you weren't standing out there, those cases would not have moved. So, and I always tell them, you did a great job. Good job standing out here waiting. But it's true.
Yeah, it is.
The cases move because the jury's there. Absolutely.
Now, okay, so let's just say, I know we were about to end, but this question came up. So if a case has a jury sitting outside, they plead. Mm-hmm. Can that jury also do the next case that's coming up?
Absolutely. So what I'll do, for instance, if my number one, the jury stays outside until we are certain that this is the one that's going to trial.
Gotcha.
So I have had days where I can walk out and tell that jury, y'all just help me try 5 cases, because we would move 5 cases off the trial docket.
Wow.
Because that jury was standing there and they didn't do anything but wait. And they can get frustrated waiting, and I understand that. And that's why I try to go out and tell them, we were not goofing off in here. A lot took place just because you were standing right there.
That's good.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
Right. Yeah, so once that jury, now once you bring them in and if you get started on a case and it pleads later during the case, that jury's gone.
Yeah.
But until you start, those cases keep moving, and they're doing a good job standing out there.
Those offenders see those people.
They absolutely, the lawyers see them. The lawyers see on both sides, and deals get a little better sometimes, a little worse sometimes. It just depends, but it helps move the cases.
Well, Judge, I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thank Judge for coming, and thank you for watching today on what's happening in our neighborhood, and we will see you next time on our broadcast.